I used to think the rumors about ghosts were just a joke until I woke up in the room that everyone said had been locked for the past 3 years. My name is Mike, 19 years old, a first year college student who had come from the countryside to the city because I registered for the dorm late and there were no rooms left. I was forced to look for a place outside. A senior suggested I try an old apartment building, but there was something strange about it.
The sixth floor of that building was locked after a student hanged herself in room 602.
I'm not afraid of those things. Thanks, bro.
That afternoon, when I spoke with the building manager, a middle-aged woman named Maria, she said there was only one apartment left, number 502, which meant directly above it was room 602 from the rumor. With no other choice, I had to accept renting this place. During the first few nights there, I kept waking up startled by strange noises coming from the ceiling, the sound of a chair being dragged, then silence. A moment later, a loud crash hit the floor. That sound kept repeating, and it started to really irritate me.
Hey, what the hell is with all the noise? Damn dropout.
At that very moment, all the sounds suddenly stopped, as if strangled. The next night, after my friend's birthday party, I got drunk and came home quite late. When I got to my room, I saw the door was unlocked. At first, I thought I had forgotten to lock it and didn't pay attention. The room was still dark. The musty smell was strong, but all I wanted was to lie down, so I didn't turn on the light and just fell asleep. As soon as I dozed off, I dreamed that I had failed the course and had to drop out of school. Desperate, I tied a rope around my neck and hung myself from the ceiling fan. The feeling of suffocating pain was unbearable, like my head was about to explode. Terrified, I bolted upright and turned on the light with trembling hands, then realized this wasn't my room. The room was covered in dust, cobwebs everywhere, and a putrid smell filled the air. I looked up at the ceiling fan, which was twisted as if someone had once hanged themselves there. Panicked, I ran outside and froze when I saw the number 602 on the door. I screamed and ran toward the elevator, pressing the button to go down, but the elevator didn't move. Suddenly, I heard slow footsteps echoing clearly, along with the familiar dragging sound of a chair. I glanced toward room 602, and a girl wearing an old dress stepped out. Her head hung low. Her long hair covered her face, and a rope was still wrapped around her neck. Terrified, I ran toward the stairwell, but the way down was tightly locked. I summoned all my strength to kick the door open and dashed downstairs. A chilling, sharp laugh echoed behind me. A woman's laugh, hoarse and full of glee.
I was an online seller and had just moved into a new house to support my business. Luckily, I found a rather spacious house in a small neighborhood, and the rent was incredibly reasonable. During the first few nights living there, I was often awakened by the sound of scissors echoing from the next room. I thought to myself, could it be a thief? Summoning all my courage, I went out to check. But as soon as I opened the door, the sound disappeared, and the door to the other room remained tightly shut. Everything seemed normal, as if nothing had happened, so I tiredly returned to my bedroom. A while later, I was woken up again by the same sound, but this time it was louder and more urgent. A growing sense of unease crept over me, and my heart pounded in my chest. I got out of bed and went to the next room, but just like before, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. As I was about to close the door, I suddenly noticed a woman standing in the middle of the room. Her head bowed. She was holding a pair of rusty scissors, the blades dripping with a thick, dark liquid onto the floor. I stood frozen in the doorway, my legs glued to the ground, unable to move. Who are you? Why are you in my house? The woman didn't answer. Instead, she slowly lifted her face and it was no longer intact. Her mouth had been slit open all the way to her ears and deep scratches covered her face, oozing fresh blood. Terrified, I let out a scream, only to realize I was lying in bed with sunlight streaming in through the window. Was it just a dream? But the fear felt so real and cold sweat drenched my body. Unable to shake off my unease, I decided to call the landlord to ask about the woman. However, he dismissed my concerns, saying he knew nothing, before hurriedly hanging up. I had a gut feeling that he was hiding something about the history of the house. That night, the events repeated themselves, but this time, the sound seemed to be right next to my ear. Frightened, I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the chilling noise. Moments later, the sound suddenly stopped, and I thought that perhaps it was finally over. But when I opened my eyes, I was horrified to see the woman floating above me on the ceiling, laughing eerily. Her face drew closer and closer, her icy breath sending shivers down my spine. Overcome with terror, I screamed, mustering all my strength to leap out of bed and dash out of the house. Her sinister laughter echoed behind me, following every step I took. That night, I booked a nearby hotel to stay in, desperate to get away from that cursed house. The next morning, as I returned, I ran into a neighbor who had just come back from somewhere. Hello, ma'am. I just moved into the house across the street.
You live in that house?
Yes, but I'm planning to move out today. Is there something wrong?
A long time ago, a woman was brutally murdered by her husband in that house.
Why did her husband do that?
She was having an affair, and when her husband found out, he slit her face and then killed her before turning himself into the police.
I saw her last night. Her face was horrifying.
Ever since she died, she's been haunting that house, scaring off women with beautiful faces like yours.
A chill ran down my spine, sending a wave of goosebumps over my skin. I still vividly remembered the days I spent in that terrifying apartment complex. It haunted me for a long time. That year, I had just been accepted into university and moved into an old apartment building near the campus. I was prone to allergies, so I often applied baby powder to my skin to relieve the itching. However, because I was clumsy, I accidentally spilled the powder on the floor, creating a thin layer of white dust. It was already late, so I hurried out without cleaning it up. When I returned, I was stunned to see smudged footprints clearly imprinted all over the powder-covered floor. Worried, I called the building manager to report what had happened. Hello? I suspect someone broke into my apartment while I was away. Could you please check the security cameras for me?
Ask the security guard tomorrow. It's too late now.
He hung up right after that, but the uneasiness still lingered inside me. I got up and walked around the house, checking every corner to see if anything was missing. As I stepped out onto the balcony, a cat suddenly lunged at me and clawed my face. I screamed and stumbled back, a burning pain spreading across my skin. The cat growled. then leapt onto the neighboring balcony and vanished into the darkness. I clutched my chest, breathing heavily, telling myself it was probably just the neighbor's mischievous cat. That night, as I was sleeping, I heard someone calling my name.
Who allowed you to sleep here? Get up.
I jolted awake, only to find myself lying in the middle of a graveyard. In front of me stood a thin man with a furious expression, staring straight at me. In his hand, he held a sickle, ready to strike at any moment. Who are you? Why am I here?
This is my home. Who gave you permission to lie here?
As soon as he finished speaking, he raised the sickle and charged at me in a frenzy. I was so frightened that I turned to run, but tripped over a rock and fell to the ground. Before I could get up, the man was already upon me, the sickle raised high above my head. I screamed in panic and suddenly woke up in my familiar room. Still shaken, I immediately called my best friend. She arrived not long after, and I trembled as I told her everything that had happened. To help me uncover the truth, she poured an entire box of baby powder all over the room. Then she suggested I sleep in her room and said we'd come back to check in the morning. The next day, when we opened the door, I nearly fainted. Footprints were everywhere, children's footprints, adult footprints in all different sizes. But what chilled me to the bone was that the prints crawled up the walls and even onto the ceiling. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my things and moved out that very day. A few weeks later, while eating near that apartment complex, I saw a crowd of people running out of the building in a panic. What's going on with that apartment complex across the street?
I heard the building owner dug up someone's grave to build that place without permission. People are furious and came to tear it down.
Really? I just moved out of there because of some strange happenings.
A lot of people left after being scared off. No one dares to stay there anymore.
I felt the blood in my veins turn to ice, a chill running down my spine. Since then, I never dared to go near that apartment building again.
I used to love living alone because of the freedom and comfort it provided. But after the incident a month ago, that thought has turned into a deep fear in my heart. Hello, I'm Hannah, a 25-year-old office worker. The story I'm about to tell is a terrifying memory that still haunts me. I used to walk to work because I lived nearby, but later, every time I returned home, I felt like someone was following me. One time, I caught a glimpse of a shadow behind me, but when I turned around, there was only a dark, empty alley. One day, while I was working in the living room, my phone rang, displaying an unknown number. Hello, who is it?
Hannah, you look beautiful in that nightgown tonight.
Who are you? What do you want?
You'll find out soon enough.
A chill ran down my spine, but I bit my lip, trying to shake off the fear and focus on my work. Moments later, a sudden knock at the door made me jump. My eyes darted toward it, an indescribable unease creeping over me. Who is it? It's already this late. I went to the door and looked through the peephole, but I didn't saw anyone, just a long, empty hallway. Unease settled over me, and I sank into my chair, unable to concentrate on work anymore. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a key turning outside. Someone was trying to break in. My heart pounded, and before I could react, the door swung open. A man stepped in, his cold gaze locking onto me. A large scar marked his eyebrow. It looked familiar, but panic clouded my thoughts. Who are you? The man didn't answer. He just walked slowly toward me, pulling a small knife from his pocket. Don't come here, I'll call the police. He ignored me and kept advancing. Out of fear, I grabbed a vase from the table and hurled it at him. The man slightly tilted his head and raised his hand to shield his face. Seizing the opportunity, I quickly grabbed the phone from the table and dashed straight into the bedroom. My hands trembled as I tried to dial the police. Outside, his heavy footsteps stopped in front of my door. I suddenly realized that the police couldn't arrive quickly enough, so I had to find a way to save myself first. I hurriedly rushed to open the window. It was late at night with no one on the street, only the dim streetlights flickering in the dark. The lock trembled slightly, then the sound of metal clinking echoed through the tense atmosphere. There was no time to hesitate. I dropped to my knees and crawled under the bed. Right after that, the sound of the door opening echoed as the man's footsteps entered, each step slow but steady. I held my breath, lying still and waiting, hoping he wouldn't notice. As the man moved toward the window, I seized the opportunity and bolted for the door. I dashed toward the main door, but before I could reach it, he grabbed my hand and yanked me back. My whole body was thrown hard onto the floor. A sharp pain shot through me. I groaned softly, trying to prop myself up with my hands, trembling as I crawled backward.
Don't waste your energy. You won't escape.
I suddenly recognized the familiar voice. He was the pervert who had just been fired from my company. I never expected he would target me this time. Luke the pervert, stay away from me.
Hana, you make it impossible for me to look away.
I shuddered, trying to jerk backward to escape him, but his rough fingers tightened around my chin, keeping me from moving. I trembled and shouted at him.
Let me go.
Don't rush, Hana. We still have plenty of time.
My gaze suddenly stopped on the shards of the vase scattered on the floor. I quickly reached out, trying to touch the nearest shard. I tightened the shard in my hand, took a deep breath, and suddenly swung it up to stab his neck. He clutched his neck in pain, loosening his grip on me in an instant. Without hesitation, I staggered to my feet and ran towards the door. Just then, the police burst in. I scrambled behind them, panting, my terrified gaze locked on Luke. I stood there, my breath still rapid, my heart still beating irregularly. My legs felt like jelly after everything that had just happened. Finally, everything is over. After that incident, I moved to another area to live with a friend, no longer daring to stay alone. I hope that after this story, you will be more cautious, especially the girls who are living alone.